Hi, Joe Kehrig with the Kehrig Real Estate Team, and this is your San Ramon Valley update. And what we're going to focus on this week is how elections affect the real estate market, since we have an election, a big election coming up later this year. Well, I'll tell you, it affects it three different ways, through three interrelated channels. One is the uncertainty that people have, and also policy expectations and consumer confidence. I can tell you one thing for sure, that when we get into the real estate market, anytime there's uncertainty out there, people do hesitate. We saw it after the tragedy of 9/11. Basically, for 3 months, nothing happened with the market because there was so much uncertainty out there. And of course, we saw it after COVID, where the market just basically froze. It was forced to freeze, but then it even froze for a little while after that because the uncertainty that people had. And look at the recent elections and economic uncertainty. In 2008, we had the global financial crisis. 2012, we had the fiscal cliff, major healthcare expansion. 2016, we had the Brexit referendum in Europe. 2020, obviously the pandemic. And 2024 now, what we're dealing with is high inflation in the war. And usually home sales are unchanged compared to a non-election year, with the exception being November. In an election year, November is slower than normal, again, because everyone's kind of on edge because of those three related items, number one being uncertainty. So you'll see that the real estate market kind of dies down a little bit during November, but then it picks right back up again in January. So overall, the elections can affect the real estate market by slowing down, but then they pick right up and it's like nothing ever happened. You can see home sales went up after 9 of the last 11 presidential elections. So actually, after the election, home sales picked up again. An election year doesn't alter the price trend that is already happening in the market. So if prices are going up, they continue to go up after the election. Look at this graph, where you literally have in 7 of the 8 presidential elections that home prices went up because they were going up at the time. And the only one that it didn't was, of course, 2008, when we were in the recession and it went down. So overall, presidential elections have a very short lifespan on affecting the real estate market, and it's right as we get close to the elections. In December, following an election, and in the following year, the sales that are lost during November are recovered. It isn't that consumers say, I'm nervous and I never want to buy. They say, I'm nervous, let's just wait to see how things play out. A perfect example of this is we like using the example of McDonald's, a McDonald's restaurant and an Apple store. Because what happens, let's say that there's a pandemic, or let's say there's a tornado, or there's a storm, and a whole town shuts down. Well, the business that McDonald's loses, they're never going to get back, because people are just going to find something else to eat. But if you're stuck in your house for 2 to 3 days and you need to buy a new computer or a new iPhone, well, you're going to go back to Apple. So they're going to recoup the business, where McDonald's never going to get that business back. So in a real estate market, yes, there is going to be a hiccup, but that business is going to come up. And as we talked about, if the prices are going up, they're going to continue to go up, and sales almost always go up after. You can see the mortgage rates decreased leading up to 8 of the last 11 presidential elections. Well, that just makes sense, because obviously the incumbent in the market that's in the White House wants to make the market look as good as they can. Now, they don't have a lot of influence over interest rates. That's the Federal Reserve, but they can definitely put some pressure on that. That's why in 8 of the last 11 elections, you've seen interest rates actually go down leading up to them. We hope it's going to go down now. Matter of fact, we expected 4 to 5 price reductions in interest rates, but because recession has still been high, inflation has still been high, what we're basically seeing is the real estate market, the interest rates haven't really gone down at all. They've kind of been up and down a little bit. They do expect in September, to kind of go along with the last slide, maybe we might get a little push down with the interest rates. And how do presidential elections impact the housing market? In summary, sales activity slows during November but recovers in December and the following year. Home prices typically increase a year after the election, and mortgage rates typically decrease leading up to an election. So that's basically, it's kind of an all about nothing. Yes, they do affect it for the short while, but whatever the market's doing at the time going into the election, it normally picks up and does the same thing after election. Look at the market in our San Ramon Valley. Look at San Ramon. You can see inventory starting to go up a little bit, which we need more inventory, but you still have more pendings than you do active properties, which is almost unheard of. And that's because if you had half as many pendings as actives, it would still be considered a seller's market. So even though interest rates are high, keeping the buyers out, because interest rates are high, the sellers aren't selling because they're locked in, they're handcuffed into their lower rates. And there's still a lot more demand than there is supply on the market. It's almost kind of better that rates are staying up a little bit, so the market is kind of settled down a little bit if you're a buyer out there. The Danville market, same. It's basically, you can see the last 3 weeks has been about the same. Same thing with the Alamo market. Pending sales have picked up a little bit. And the Dublin market, actually inventory has gone down a little bit. Pending sales have stayed about the same. But you can still see the list price, 101, 100, 102, 106%. Basically what we have is when we're pricing homes now, we're pricing them more transparent. What's transparent pricing? If you feel a home's worth $1.5 million, you're going to price it at $1.5 million. Yeah, some homes on the west side and desirable areas might still get multiple offers, but for the most part, homes are selling for what the value is. You are seeing a lot of price reductions, but once that price reduction is done, then the home is selling for right around what the asking price is. So one of the things we always ask, or we advertise, is, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Buyer, this is transparent pricing. So we expect it to sell somewhat around what we're asking for. So every market's a little bit different. Please reach out if you have any questions at all. No obligation. We'll sit down with you and figure out if either buying or selling makes sense to you. Joe Kehrig, the Kehrig Real Estate Team. You can call me at 925-487-6838. Or drop me an email, joe@kehrigteam.com, or visit our website to take a look at all of our listings and learn more about the Kehrig Team, www.kehrigteam.com. Make sure you tune in next week because we're going to talk about what we expect for the market in the next couple years. Talk to you soon.